Welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. This is episode 200, Decoding Food Ingredients. What's really in your food? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. Today I am going to talk about what seems to be a complex issue of food ingredients and what's really in your food. I see a lot of things on social media and in the news in general, people who don't understand various food ingredients and assume things are not good for them. So if you've ever picked up a package of food, scan the ingredients list only to feel like you're reading a foreign language or in a chemistry class, you are definitely not alone. But I really want to cut through the confusion in today's episode. What are food additives and ingredients like carrageenan, BHA, or food dyes actually doing in your food? What's safe and what should raise a red flag, and what is not worth stressing over? Now, first up, this past week, I wrote a blog post on food standards in the US versus the EU, which has additional information and different information than in this episode. So this is like a companion piece to this podcast, or this is to the blog. So as I said, I'll link that in the show notes. So what I hear this a lot, I hear this so often, even from highly educated medical professionals say, well, that ingredient is banned in Europe, but it's allowed here. And is that really true, or is there more to it than that? Now, first up, I want to start with some basic information. Types of food ingredients. In the United States, food manufacturers must list all ingredients used in a product. Ingredients are listed in descending order by weight. So those first few ingredients make up a majority of the product. And then towards the end of the list is usually a very, very small amount of that ingredient. Some ingredients, such as color additives, like red number 40 or blue 1, must be explicitly listed. Now, other things can be grouped more generally under labels like natural flavors, spices, or artificial flavoring. And that's why you'll often see vague terms like flavors, even when multiple ingredients are involved. And also, the source of an ingredient doesn't automatically make it good or bad. Artificial ingredients they're not inherently unsafe, just as natural ones aren't always better. Every ingredient, regardless of origin, must meet the same safety standards. And artificial ingredients like an artificial color doesn't always mean synthetic. That could mean they're using beets to color something that has a cherry flavor. That's an artificial flavor. It's not cherry flavor. It's beets using the coloring to enhance the color of a cherry flavored food. So again, artificial doesn't mean it's a synthetic item or ingredient. It means it's not something that would naturally be found in that food anyway. So I'm going to use this term GRAS, G-R-A-S. What does it mean? And I'm not going to keep saying it over and over the whole thing, so I want to introduce what this is first. So GRAS, G-R-A-S, stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. And this designation is for substances that are widely accepted as safe by qualified experts, either through scientific research or long history of common use in food. Now, GRAS ingredients do not need formal FDA approval, but they must still meet safety expectations. Now, it's a common misconception that GRAS means no oversight, when in fact, many familiar ingredients, salt, vinegar, baking soda, fall under GRAS. If we had to have a formal approval process for each of these ingredients, if we had to formally approve salt as an ingredient or an additive, formally approve baking soda as an additive or ingredient, I can't even imagine how people would balk at salt or vinegar being regulated by the FDA. So I want to go over some categories of ingredients and their purposes. Now, I'm not going to go over every single category, but some of the more common categories of food ingredients and why they're used. Now, first up, preservatives. And this extends shelf life and prevents spoilage. So, some examples: BHA, BHT, sodium benzoate, sodium benzoate, and even ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. So this is used to keep food safe from mold, bacteria, or oxidation. So again, extending shelf life and prevent spoilage. This is why I can have a loaf of bread for a week and it's not going moldy. So these are used in so many types of foods, from baked goods, cured meats, fruit spreads, and even fruits and vegetables. If you ever looked in a can of fruits or vegetables, you might see some of these in there. Commonly, sliced apples are going to have ascorbic acid with it. That's just vitamin C to help keep it from browning. This really has helped with minimizing food waste. And in the United States, we don't like to go to the grocery store multiple times a week. We don't go to the market to buy fresh foods multiple times a week. So these are things that can help us have that food last a full week or longer. Now, another classification of food ingredients are emulsifiers and stabilizers. Now, this helps mix ingredients that don't normally blend and help maintain texture. Examples are lecithin, carrageenan, xanthan gum. So this helps prevent separation in things like salad dressing or plant-based milks. So salad dressing, a vinegar and oil salad dressing, you have to shake it all the time. But a lot of the salad dressings that we buy at the store, that maybe the cream salad dressings, so ranch or blue cheese, there is that emulsifier in there that helps it stay blended. And then plant-based milks, boy, there's the emulsifiers in plant-based milks. Look at the ingredients label. So other foods this might be found in is peanut butter, chocolate, I mentioned the salad dressings, and the plant-based milks. Another category here is flavor enhancers. And it really, the definition there, enhances the flavor or boosts or balances the taste of a food. A primary example is one that strikes fear in so many people, irrationally, unnecessarily, is monosodium glutamate, or MSG. And this is used to enhance the savory flavor or the umami flavor without adding more salt. So it's not adding flavor, but helping to make the existing ones bolder. Now, monosodium glutamate, or MSG, is used in so many foods around the world, so many cultural foods. Yet for some reason, people only think of Chinese food that has MSG, when really it is naturally found in plenty of foods, and then it is also used in foods. I know people who use it in their own kitchen. They buy it, accent. It's something you shake on a food and it really improves the flavor. And even people who say they're sensitive to it, I have had people say, oh, I use that all the time. And they say they're sensitive to MSG, yet they eat my enchiladas and never say anything. So that's a whole other episode. Not going to go much more into that. MSG is a food additive that is a flavor enhancer. Now, color additives. Now, this is there to improve the appearance or replace natural color lost during processing. So example, red number 40, yellow 5, annatto. And here's the reason this is used. Consumers expect a specific color, and consumers associate color with freshness or flavor. And there's a natural loss of color with exposure to light, extreme temperatures, just the processing. So here's the deal. People expect cherry or grape flavored foods, candies, to have a very specific color. And if they don't have that specific color, people don't think it tastes like cherry or grape. And this has been shown in the past when food additives, or rather color additives, have been stopped in some foods. People swear it tastes different and they don't like it. Another category, sweeteners. This one seems pretty obvious, but yes, these are considered food additives. They provide sweetness, go figure, without added calories. They can provide sweetness with calories as well, so we can have regular sugar, but usually most often this is one that has the non-nutritive or 0 calorie or low calorie sweeteners. So examples, sucralose, stevia, aspartame. And this is used to reduce sugar content or meet dietary preferences. So dietary preferences for people who have diabetes needing to reduce their sugar intake while still enjoying those sweet foods. People wanting those sweet tastes without the added sugar calories. So I prefer my Coke Zero. I like that taste for very specific reasons, but I don't want all that sugar. I don't want the sugar or the calories for it. I just want the Coke taste. And then the last category I'm going to address here, I'm going to give you a link in the show notes for much more of these lists, but the thickeners and binders. And this improves consistency and mouthfeel and provides a specific texture expectation. So if you've ever used cornstarch or flour to thicken a sauce, that's what this is. Examples, gelatin, pectin, modified food starch. These are used in puddings, jams, frozen desserts, sauces, so many things. So with that, as I said, there's a much more extensive list on what, why, and where various types of food ingredients, food additives are used. And it's quite an extensive list. So again, link in the show notes to the FDA website that lists all these things. Now, more importantly, what to be mindful of. Some people may be sensitive to specific ingredients, like artificial colors or preservatives. Others may choose to avoid certain additives based on personal preferences, cultural beliefs, or allergies. So for example, gelatin, cultural belief, not using pork products, gelatin can't be used as an additive. But this is a big thing. I say this all the time. It's essential to put things into context. Seeing a long list of ingredients doesn't automatically make a food bad. We look at the overall dietary pattern, not just one label. It's also helpful to remember that many of these additives are used in small amounts and serve specific functions, often related to food safety, shelf stability, or taste. And if someone is concerned about exposure to too many food dyes, I often challenge that person to look at the types of foods that they are eating that contain those food dyes. You're not finding those food dyes in fresh fruits or vegetables. If you're eating a lot of food dyes or foods that have food dyes, are those foods ones that should be limited anyway? Not eliminated, but limited. So what's not worth stressing over? If a food additive has been reviewed or approved or recognized as GRAS, it's likely safe in the amounts typically consumed. So I emphasize this, in the amount that most rational humans would typically consume, it is safe. There are going to be those people who go to extremes. And we're talking extremes. Stressing over every ingredient you can't pronounce can lead to unnecessary fear or restriction. And in the past, I've talked about how things you can't pronounce are not always bad. They could be an essential vitamin that you need. And it's just going by its chemical compound name. So again, for most people, the bigger picture matters more. Are you eating balanced meals? Are you getting fruits and vegetables, protein, and fiber regularly? The occasional snack food with preservatives isn't going to undo that. Now, I do want to talk about the US versus EU ingredient standards, and is the EU safer? I go into this much more in the blog that I've linked in the show notes. But you've likely heard the comparisons between ingredient standards in the US and Europe. And yes, there is a difference in how ingredients are approved and regulated. In the US, the FDA uses the GRAS list that I've talked about and a long-standing approval process. And in the EU, they maintain a shorter list of permitted food items or food additives. But that doesn't mean the food supply is safer or that they don't use many of the same food additives. See, the EU provides or approves foods collectively, food items collectively, while the US typically lists individual ingredients. And like I mentioned, salt, vinegar, ascorbic acid are these GRAS or approved additives where the EU doesn't even recognize those as additives. So you can't compare the two numbers or the two regulatory ways it is done and call one better. And this doesn't mean the US is automatically putting dangerous food on the shelves. Again, the difference is coming down to regulatory approach. And neither system is perfect. As much as people want to claim that Europe or the EU is better, it's just different. And decisions are often based on more than just safety data. Consumer behavior, consumers drive what is in our foods. Manufacturing practices, and even politics plays a role. And more importantly, the EU uses many of the same additives as the US. They just go by a different name. So that's important. They do use many of the same additives. So here's some examples. Food dyes like red 40, yellow 5, and blue 1 are used in the EU. They are, but they go by a different name. So for example, red 40 in the US, in the EU is referred to as Allura Red or E129. Yellow 5 in the United States is tartrazine or E102 in the EU. And blue 1 in the United States? In the EU, it's brilliant blue or E133. So the claim that these aren't used in Europe is usually based on name confusion. And what is often overlooked is that the EU requires warning labels when some of the dyes are used, but not outright bans. So they don't ban it, they just require a warning label. So some manufacturers in the EU will avoid using these ingredients to skip the labeling hassle, not because of a health risk. So with that, some final thoughts here. Food labels can feel overwhelming. And there's plenty of people on social media and holding positions that they get a wider voice that are claiming these things are deadly or contributing to obesity in our country. But let's get to the truth. Food labels can be an opportunity to make informed choices. Ingredients like carrageenan or BHA have a specific function and often relating to reducing food waste. And it's reasonable to avoid certain items if they don't sit well with you, but fear around every unfamiliar item isn't necessary. All right, I know there was a lot to take in this episode. I hope it cleared up some misinformation and confusion. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I just touched the tip of the iceberg with regard to the various categories of food ingredients. But bottom line, these usually have a purpose, and the United States and the EU do tend to have the similar or same additives approved or allowed. It's just different regulations or different names. And with that, I need to take a break, get a drink of water. So with that, I want to leave you with that food for thought on these things. Look at your ingredients list and be like, this isn't so bad after all, or maybe I should pick different foods. All right. You all have a great week. Take care and bye for now.